This is the On the Mark podcast, bringing you facts, opinions, and personal experiences from the outdoor industry.
I got the opportunity to shoot an AR-15. That was one of the funnest experiences that I've had.
It's pretty exciting. It's a big rush.
Presented by SightMark, an industry leader in optics, bore sights, night vision, and more. Make your mark. Welcome to the On the Mark podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Hamilton. Today in the studio, we've got Aaron Cayce. And Aaron Cayce is the owner of Phoenix Weaponry. And Phoenix Weaponry produces just about some of the most beautiful firearms I've ever seen. I always say if you took 200 ARs from different manufacturers and you lined them up against a wall, at a glance, you would probably not be able to tell apart some of them. But I guarantee you one would stand out, and it would be a Phoenix Weaponry firearm. So just to get things kicked off a little bit, Aaron, tell the beautiful people hi.
Hello, how you guys doing?
And now give a little shout out to the ugly people too, because there's way more of them.
Thank you guys for having me in. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thanks for coming in. To kind of get things started off, I got to tell a little bit of story about how we met. And, you know, a buddy of mine here at the office kind of introduced me to you after he brought in one of your rifles. Yep. And immediately I was like, I got to have one. Yep. So I figured out a way. I got to place an order. And of course, this was during the COVID times. Yep. So there were kinks in the road for everybody. Yep. Just manufacturing issues. Gun manufacturers across the board were experiencing really long wait times. And so during this time period of me waiting for this rifle, I talked to you occasionally over the phone. We did some other side projects together. But then we also had a hunt scheduled out. Through some connections, we were able to get this hunt lined up where we were actually going to meet in person for the first time.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And but it was kind of a funny experience for me because through our phone conversations, I kept hinting towards my rifle. And what was interesting, which you'll learn about Phoenix Weaponry rifles, is that each model is named after a woman. Or has a female name, I should say. Yep. And so I kept talking to Aaron, and every time I'd call him, I'd be like, hey, I got this beautiful date with this girl named Samantha lined up. and I kept referring back to this girl named Samantha as this gun that I had on order, right? And all this was phone conversations before I actually met you in person. Yeah. And then when I met you in person, we show up for this hunt. I walk up, I shake your hand, and I make sure to kind of look around and make it obvious that I'm looking for something, to which you were like, what are you doing? And I was like, well, I'm pretty sure I had a hot date with this girl named Samantha, and I think she was supposed to come with you. And this whole time during these phone conversations, you had that same little chuckle every time I said it, and I thought I was being real funny. And then I make eye contact with you right after I say that in person, and I see a different facial expression than what I had heard on the phone. And all of a sudden you go, well, Samantha's my daughter. And they say you got 15 seconds to make a good first impression. Well, I spent about 2 weeks putting my foot in my mouth. So it's a blessing that you decided to come in here and spend some time with me in the studio. So I really appreciate it. But one of the things that I wanted to get at was your design is unique in several different ways, but can you just explain to us kind of what your design is and then how you got to that point? What made you want to go that direction?
I look at guns as tools, right? And each tool always has a job. You want to make sure that the tool performs at the highest level for that purpose. And so when we looked at making all these guns, or when I looked at making these things a long time ago, it just seems like, when I started doing this, people had these giant quad rails, so they wanted to pull off that plastic handguard cover and get rid of the front sight posts. And so then they started strapping these giant quad rails on there. And then there's an entire industry shows up with like stuff to cover up the quad rail because the quad rail hurts, right? And I'm like, what in the world? And then the guns are overheating because you can't get the air out from underneath these quad rails. And then it just seemed like everything was really messed up. Like you buy something and then you strap some underglow on it, maybe a visor on it, maybe tint way too low, and maybe some rims, but it still's got a 3-cylinder engine, and it still has a geo badge on it. It's not.
Yeah.
We didn't fix anything.
Right.
So I really wanted stuff to be very precise and very accurate. I've made stuff for DARPA over the years. I've been involved in a lot of different things, and I really want each gun to have a purpose and be special.
Yeah, and we see that in the quality of work you've done. And I mean, even in the process of me buying my firearm from you, in the conversations we had on the side, it was, you let me know straight from the beginning. You're like, look, I want to make sure and get you quality parts, and I'm not going to push out something that's below my quality just to, try and get it out faster. And, I think in the end, your consumers are going to appreciate the hell out of that.
It's a little rough in the beginning.
Yeah.
People are like 6 months. I mean, 6 months is what you're running right now.
Yeah.
But, a lot of times 50% of the stuff that we do have to buy, bulk carry groups and barrels at this particular moment, fail our quality control, incoming quality control. If you wait, a couple months for a weapon and you pay the premium price that we ask for our weapons, and your bolt comes apart, or it's shooting all the way off the paper, and then another one goes the opposite direction, you're not going to be happy,
right?
I want, when you get it, to be dialed in, and you're just like, this is easy.
Yeah.
We were out this past weekend with some people, and they hadn't really ever shot distance. So at the hunting camp we were at Lone Star Hunts, we actually set up a 500-yard range and put out a 6-inch target.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay. And so
pushed them out further than probably what most of them had shot before.
Right. And so I set them down with a nice rifle, get them all dialed in, do the dope. I'm like, all right, I don't even touch it. I just hand it to them. All right, dial me, 37 clicks.
Sure.
And, like, all right, send it. And they're like, dink. I'm like, that's easy.
There you go.
That's a properly made, manufactured.
It's a quality firearm.
Yeah, you need to know your gun.
Yeah. Well, and those same people that were probably a little shocked at a 6-month wait probably ended up not being shocked by the end of that day, because there's a good chance that in today's market, people have unlimited information at their fingertips through, the computer.
Not always good information.
Not always good information, but what they have is access to other manufacturers or dealers that, before would take a little bit more work. Yeah. So they're able to pick up the phone and call, and they probably found that most, if not everybody, was experiencing pretty much the same delays, which, 6 months to a year. Yeah. I mean, there were some that I was going to order last year that they told me straight up, it's like, it will be 2022 before you can get this firearm. Yeah. And we're talking, December at that point. And I'm like, that's insane. Well, so by the end of their search, they were probably like, man, this is actually affecting everybody across the board.
Everybody's having a tough time. There's a lot of imported parts that are now being blended with commercial or U.S.-made parts. There's a mixing of components and metals and all that kind of stuff coming on shore, and it's going to affect everybody in a pretty bad way. The good news is for you, though, is that your weapon was on the bench, on the back bench before I left. So one of the guys was like,
hallelujah.
Your barrel was actually in the lathe. So yeah, it should be. We'll get through the initial testing of your barrel, make sure everything's good the way we like it, and then you should be hopefully getting painted soon. Awesome.
We'll get it in here for some marketing content too, and kind of throw it back at you a little bit.
We'll have to see what kind of camo you want it done up in.
Now, I want to dive into the meat real quick, and we're just gonna wiggle right into there. Okay. There was a shooting a few weeks ago in Boulder, Colorado, and the reason I'm asking you about this specific shooting is because Phoenix Weaponry is located in Colorado.
Yep, we're 20 minutes away from us.
Yeah, so that kind of must have hit close to home for you.
Every shooting hits close to home.
What are some details about that shooting?
Colorado has some, we'll call it a race to California, Cayce, Colorado, which you guys are also experiencing here in Texas, but they're in a big push to do as much as they can, as fast as they can, and so doing so, we had an assault weapons ban in Boulder, of course, effective as all ones are, where almost nobody turns them in. You already have a magazine capacity limit. We have no private party transfers allowed.
Was that shooter in Boulder using a legal magazine?
No, that would be no. Yeah.
Okay.
And so, I mean,
effective law.
I just don't understand people's lack of understanding that you cannot make murder any more illegal than what it is.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
it's like it's like at one point in time, everybody got together and was like, hey, listen, this murder thing is not good. Right. These people are
probably biblical, you know.
Let's outlaw murder.
Yeah.
And then they did it, and then they're like, people are still being murdered.
And carved it in stone to boot and put them on a couple tablets.
Yeah, exactly. People are still being murdered. Let's ban tools that help people murder. Yeah. And you're like, okay, so like fist and feet?
Yeah, well, not those. Everybody's got those.
No,
knives? No. Hammers? No. I mean, people need hammers.
Yeah. All things that are responsible for killing people much more than firearms.
Yeah.
But not even those tools are responsible. It's the individual and, their mindset.
We've lost individual responsibility in the United States. Once people have lost that, you lose the values of life and everything else. I mean, until people have personal responsibility for your actions, for your behaviors and everything, I mean, we're just doomed. I mean, we have to find a way to bring that back if it's even possible.
Right.
If you're never responsible for what you do and what you say, then it's never going to stop.
Right.
Right.
Well, the good news is for the firearms industry is that people in the last 2 years have been flocking to the firearms industry.
Yeah, they've been breaking records on background checks.
Dear Lord, by insane amounts. I mean, there are more new gun owners today by far. I mean, the numbers are staggering.
Yeah. And what's funny is when they're doing this, the background check reports, they're only giving you that a request for a background check was made.
Right.
They're not telling you that some of those are multi transfers.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So you figure maybe 25% are multi weapons.
Right.
You're like, wow. I mean, you have a population that's very well armed and
right.
The numbers really don't support their fear and the information that they put out. But there's a lot of people making a lot of money on both sides of the aisle, fear, right? So if you have a situation where somebody, does something illegal and, breaks several laws to get to where they're going and then proceeds to break a law every time, they harm somebody, and then, both sides get their rhetoric that they need. They get their propaganda that they need. And then pretty soon you've got everybody fundraising to promote their situation. And it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and, you look at Colorado's gun laws. There's already pretty strict gun laws in Colorado.
Flags. I mean, we're right below California and Massachusetts and a few. I mean, the only thing we're missing is, the so-called featureless grip where you have to put like the weird little wing on it.
Right. When you look at these gun laws that are already in place, and here we are, a man walks into a supermarket and 10 people are dead. Mm-hmm. And, it's just another statement of saying,
would it made the news if he drove his vehicle through the front door and got 10?
It would
never made the news.
It might have made the news, but it'd have been out of the news as fast as humanly possible. I mean, I don't know. They'd have made a female Buzz Lightyear, and it'd have taken over the news segment, and that'd be everybody to talk about that week. It would have been out so fast.
Yep.
But, you look at disarming a population, and there's the potential that had California had less strict gun rules, somebody might have been available at that supermarket during the time that this man who was going to operate this, regardless whether it was illegal or not, and could have potentially stopped him before he was effective as he was.
But that's part of the personal responsibility thing, right? So as a person, do you have an obligation to your neighbor? Do you have an obligation to, you have an obligation automatically to your family?
Right.
But, there's even questions about intervening.
Right.
If you do decide to be a concealed carry holder and then you decide to intervene in a situation, there's some questions about how that plays out. You know, when the police department do arrive, nobody knows. I mean, people aren't used to that kind of stress, their recollection of what's happening, their everything. I mean, it's just an interesting an interesting thing, because if that concealed carry person is not being actively threatened by himself, and you take the shot, I mean, I think you could, especially in Colorado, I think you could end up in a pretty interesting situation. I mean, you could lose maybe everything.
Yeah.
But I mean, what are your options?
Right. Right. Saving potentially your life or others, or, potentially facing the government backlash on doing that. And that's a moral dilemma that a lot of people are struggling with. And
well, not to mention, with the allowance of civil lawsuits and the rest of it, I mean, people get sued for somebody breaking into their house, and then they shoot them, and then the family is somehow able to sue the person who. I don't,
right. Yeah. It's completely ridiculous.
I don't understand. I mean, you've violated somebody's rights.
Right.
You're
well, and today part of the problem is these news organizations are so bloodthirsty for ratings. They are starving for ratings. They got to be the first one out with the story no matter what.
Yeah, don't worry about the accuracy.
And they report on the stories regardless of whether or not they're accurate reportings. They get out whatever narrative they can. And then the next thing is, what are the reactions to this narrative we just reported, whether it's accurate or not?
This is having good social media feedback. We need more of these stories.
And these politicians are so obsessed with trying to pander to a certain crowd that they will comment.
What's their money base?
Yes, they will comment on these stories before anything's,
no clue.
Deemed legitimate.
Yeah.
And then they end up looking like idiots on the back end.
Well, I mean, so do you believe that the media's behavior is actually on accident? Or do you believe that if you so-called purchase a narrative, it sells better, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no consequences for maybe, manufacturing a crisis, or the science doesn't have to support it,
right? No, my belief is that the media is 100% on board with fueling an anti-gun agenda.
Absolutely.
And you see it every day in the lack of reporting from defense stories.
Yes.
Where stuff was prevented because somebody was there with a firearm. It happens literally thousands of times a day.
Yeah.
And you don't hear about them.
Unfortunately, I've had a couple of situations in my life where, having a sidearm, and, thankfully I didn't have to, do anything more than just convince the person to
most of the time
lay down. And
most of the time the result is everything is diffused right then. You don't even have to pull the trigger.
Nope.
There's a lot of it where just brandishing the firearm completely dissolves the entire situation.
And you got to be careful. I mean, once you get that weapon out, if you don't move in a proper manner, I mean, you can end up, in a really bad situation. My wife, she chooses not to conceal carry because she says she doesn't have the violence of action to present the firearm in a manner that convinces that person on the other end that you will do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
But if somebody rolls out and they're, making that movement forward and lots of eye contact, very firm, calm, commands of what's required.
Right.
And people sober up, you can see it in their face when they become sober, when they're looking down,
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and so then we all have to deal with the backlash of knee-jerk reactions from the federal government in every situation.
Yeah, no tragedy goes unused.
Right. Yeah. And Biden just last week signed a bunch of executive orders, some of which don't do anything.
Well, they're vague.
They're vague, and the reason they're vague on purpose.
Yeah,
they're
absolutely.
vague on purpose because he got Merrick Garland as the Attorney General, who's an anti-gun Attorney General, and he has nominated David Chipman for the AFT.
Yeah,
which I got to figure out some more information about the AFT. That could potentially be a huge problem.
Well, they're going to have to get all new blazers with the yellow and letters on the back,
Yeah, they're
all the badges have to be printed. I mean, there's a lot of paperwork. I mean, there's headers to be changed, letterhead.
Exactly, yes.
It's going to be a massive movement. If you've ever tried to navigate the ATF's website for any sort of firearm stuff, I mean, you've got thousands of forms that are still in PDF format that are not, interactable with. I mean, we're talking about a massive shift.
Yeah,
Could take
a
years.
complete overhaul.
We'll have to get the guys who did the Obamacare website on there and get that thing fixed right up.
Yeah, exactly. But it's one of the things was the AFT will announce a further definition on what makes a pistol brace, what changes that firearm into a short-barreled rifle.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a knee-jerk reaction to the shooter in Colorado having used an AR pistol with a brace.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. But really, I see it as really just a money grab because
Of course.
that shooter already decided he was going to break whatever laws were in place.
Well,
Didn't matter.
And the family didn't use the red flag law that was pushed down our throat
Exactly.
recently. We've got safe storage laws. We've got magazine capacity. I mean, people talk about high-capacity magazine.
Yeah.
It is a standard capacity
We've
magazine.
had this conversation before because I mentioned high capacity magazine and you flipped around and you said,
Don't use that.
Don't say that term.
I mean, you want to call it a standard capacity clip? I could care less. But
Right.
these are the magazines that were designed to be used with those system.
Right.
These are not some random new things. These came out of the 50s and 60s.
Right. So that goes into the verbiage of what we need to be using here in the industry.
Yes.
High capacity magazine, we as an industry should be channeling all our energy into
Standard
making sure that
capacity.
people understand this is the standard magazine. This is what comes with your
Standard
AR. When you
capacity.
purchase an AR, you're going to get a 30-round standard magazine.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Yes.
That helps us. So believe it or not, that's important because it actually helps us when we combat these legislators that are saying high capacity magazines.
Right.
Okay, well, look,
Fear.
that's
Right.
not a thing. Like,
Right. No.
we have standard magazines.
Mm-hmm.
It really does make a huge difference. And the reason I brought up the influx of new gun owners in the past, or from the past 2 years, is because I see it as tremendous potential
Yes.
for us to be able to push back more on all these crazy bills that are being voted on now. But the problem is, I think we have to, as an industry, figure out a way, how can we make these people actually engage, these new gun owners? We have to be able to make them actually engage, call their senators. Right now, it's popular to just get on Facebook or Twitter and
It's just lip
shout out
service.
something.
Yeah. Well, that would mean that the gun industry would have to come together as a whole. So, the hunters aren't a big fan of the ARs, right? So
Right.
you have the bolt gun guys that aren't fans of the gas guns. You've got the AR guys against the AK guys.
Right.
Until the gun industry becomes, at least polite, cohesive, and unwilling to slit each other's throat over a half of a penny laying on the ground, to get there. I mean, we don't stand a chance.
Right. Yeah. And that goes into just like the gun owners themselves, the individuals that are making these purchases. Man, we've got to be on the same page together. I am in more than I can count gun groups.
Mm-hmm.
If I buy a gun, I'll jump on the Facebook fan
course,
group
yeah.
for that firearm.
Yeah.
And all I see is somebody that just purchased a firearms, new and excited about it. They'll post a picture of it and say, "Guys, which sight should I get?" Or "Guys, which laser should I get?" Or
You should have got that gun.
What custom holster should I get?
Yeah.
It is just a bloodbath of comments about why'd you get that model? Throw that piece of trash away. Oh, you're going to get that? You shouldn't get that. You need to get this.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it is the pride. Like some guy just went out and spent, $1,500 on his red dot.
Well, unless it was like, part of the stimulus package.
Right.
But yeah.
Part of it's the pride. And so like these guys are really snooty about what they just dumped all this money into.
Yep.
But it gets to a point that we've got all these new gun owners coming in and they're coming into an abrasive environment when instead it should be like, hey man, you chose that and that's cool. It's a good looking gun.
Yeah.
You're going to love it.
No, not going to happen.
There's nothing wrong with that because then we can come together as a community and be like, hey, let's make a phone call into our congressman and just leave him a voicemail. That's all it's going to be. It's going to be a 15-second voicemail.
Yep.
Hi, my name's Jeff. I live in Texas, and I'm calling to voice my opposition to any bills that attack our Second Amendment rights.
And you're going to get the fancy piece of letterhead back saying from the office of such and such congressman, we appreciate your feedback.
Yeah.
But we're going to be going in opposite direction on this.
Yeah. Well, but the more people we actually have calling in, it really does make a difference. And I think I'm of a different opinion. Guys like Tom Gresham are really like, stop screwing around on Facebook. Call.
Yep.
We need the Facebook and the Twitter, and we need that interaction too. Because if you look at some of the radical stuff that's happening right now, a lot of that's
social media.
It's fueled by social media,
Yep.
and I think it does serve a purpose. But they also, those same people that are on social media pushing all these anti-gun narratives, they are also taking the time to call in. I guarantee you they're getting way more calls about gun control than we are calling in to voice.
Well, you're looking at different ideals, right? So we'll call them a progressive, right? We'll go back to the old, you have conservative and you have progressive, right? By and large, the nature of a progressive is to progress their agenda, right? They're evangelical. They're motivated. They're busy. I mean, they keep it busy. A conservative is going to be doing what? Working on taking care of their family, doing their stuff that is conservative, right? No. You don't go out and you're not pushing. You're not, we're looking at two completely different ways of looking at things. One's completely emotional. One's completely, non-emotional.
Right.
So it's, but a long time ago they used to say that the problem with people was that they were the lack of information.
Yeah.
That's not the case, because I think social media is going to be the downfall of our civilization.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't lack of information. Now people have access to too much information. You don't know what's real. You don't know what's fake.
That's the
You
big
don't know
problem,
what's manufactured. You don't know what has been doctored. You don't know what's been clipped.
And the change from reporting actual news without bias. I took classes in college on broadcasting. And at that time, I was taught to leave emotions out of your reporting.
Yes.
You're reporting on a story. It's emotionless reporting. You don't get to choose a side. That's the way I was taught.
Yeah.
However, right now, the news is just flooded with opinion segments.
Yes, it's all editorial.
It's all editorial opinion segments, and people are just accepting that now as factual news.
Because it's presented that way, though.
Right.
Right? Because a long time ago, they used to have, editorial at the top of the newspaper or the newspaper saying this is the editorial section, right?
Yeah.
And then when you had people that were doing their TV stuff, they'd have they call it an opinion piece, right? They've removed all that. Right. So now you just have basically nothing but editorials,
you get at best you get a small tagline under the ridiculous header that says opinion piece by whoever.
My wife laughs at me because I'll actually turn off the sound on the TV and I read the bottom. I read the bottom, basically not teleprompter, but whatever they call that thing at the bottom of the screen. Yeah. I just read that. Yeah. I mean, and what's funny is you've got this conflict coming up in Russia. I mean, the Russians are mobilizing thousands of troops, moving armor to the border of Ukraine. Ukraine's, reacting in a big way. Ukraine's wanting to be in NATO and all this other stuff. What do you see? What do you hear on the editorial pieces? Nothing. Right. What do you see on the bottom of the screen? Russia mobilizing 4,000 troops to the Ukrainian border and all this other stuff. All this stuff's going on. They're up there yapping away with their perfectly combed hair and their makeup on and the hamburger lights, Right. And then, down underneath is some pretty serious world news going on.
Right. Exactly.
Oh, don't worry about that. Don't look at that. We just had that up there,
exactly.
to put on a resemblance of news.
Well, we did cover it. Didn't you see it? Look at the slider right here. It's 15 seconds.
Yeah.
There it goes.
Catch it quick.
Yeah, exactly. Well, back to this shooter in Colorado. Well, actually, let's go back to the gun laws in Colorado. So you guys already have red flag laws. Yeah. Is there any indication that those work at all?
Well, according to the shooter in Boulder, no, because his family actually supposedly took a gun away from him 4 or 5 days before he went to Boulder and did what he did. Right. So you're violating somebody's rights before they've committed a crime. Right. There's no hearing. There's no sentencing. There's no, you just all of a sudden decide, right. With whatever evidence is presented. Right. Now they've got this safe storage law to basically kind of finish it up. So if like your neighbor believes that you're not storing your firearms safe, then you tie that to the red flag. It just
leaves it too open.
I mean, you're rolling towards Minority Report.
The reason I brought it up is because it was one of the executive orders that Biden announced. He wanted to come up with a federal template for the red flag laws.
Using Colorado and California as a basis.
Yes. And the reason that that's important, and I want people to understand a little bit more about this, your state, just because the federal government issues a template for the red flag gun laws, whatever state you live in doesn't necessarily have to adopt that in.
No.
But it makes it a hell of a lot easier for states that want that in to accept it. If that didn't exist, they have to go through the legislature process. They have to vote on it. It has to get a majority vote. And it has to go through this long process. And a lot of states just don't have the votes to be able to pass that.
Right.
But with a federal template in place, all that state has to do is say, okay, we accept this federal law, and now we're going to be this way.
Well, this whole COVID thing has opened up this whole executive order thing under the Emergency Powers Act, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, maybe that falls under executive orders, right?
Right.
I mean, we're now ruling by caveat.
Right.
So every 4 years, you're going to have somebody come in, or every 2 years for governors and things like this. You're going to be able to roll in and basically undo whatever you want, issue new edicts from the throne, right?
Right.
And basically just change everything,
right,
whenever you feel like it.
Right.
We've removed the slowness of Congress in exchange for a quick, executive order, and you fight it out in the courts later, but they don't get to it for 6-7 years. So you've already got your quick flip on your feel good policy that you've executive ordered. You've got your base all riled up and funding, sending you money for this whole thing. And by the time it gets to court to find out that it's unconstitutional, you're already out of office.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty good scam, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's insane.
Follow the money.
Yeah. We've got a few minutes here, so I want to get to a different topic real quick, and I think this one's going to hit a little closer to home for you. It wasn't in the executive orders that he signed, but he did say that he wanted to push Congress to remove liabilities for gun manufacturers. And being a gun manufacturer, I'm guessing that's got a little bit more meaning to it than what some people might realize. What does it mean to have your liability stripped away as a gun manufacturer?
Well, if you make something and legal tender is exchanged for it, you are now going to be liable for however that person has decided to use this weapon while committing their crimes. So once you break open this, we'll call it a door, then can Ford be sued because somebody drove their vehicle to a certain place? He may have drank a Bud Light on the way. Is Budweiser liable? Is the tire manufacturer liable?
Right.
Is the door manufacturer? I mean, once you
every
remove
single device that was used in the process of that crime.
I mean, we had a huge mess in the 80s and 90s with like suing everybody about, you manufactured this, and because I put Gorilla Glue in my hair, now all of a sudden the manufacturer is now liable, right?
Right, yeah.
Instead of, a bunch of morons going on, a GoFundMe page to pay somebody to get their head fixed because they weren't smart enough to put Gorilla Glue in their hair.
Right.
They would have been allowed to sue Gorilla Glue because they didn't tell them to put it on their hair.
Right.
I mean, that's where all these dumb warning labels come from, and the stupid little stick figures where, it has like a leg laying there next to the stick figure, because if you turn your lawnmower upside down and then you kick the blade to start it or stop it, that you could lose a leg.
Might result in loss of limbs.
Right.
Yeah.
But, now we're going to basically start removing, liability. So firearms are on the main target. That's the crosshairs. Okay. After that comes what? Ammunition manufacturers. After that, what else don't people like? Oh, we don't want you to drink 2 liters of soda at a time.
That's the thing. That's the thing that people need to understand. There's no end game. There's not a stopping point. There's not a point where they say, okay, firearm manufacturers have lost their liability. Everything's perfect. Now we're happy and satisfied, and the world will be unified, and everything will be peaceful.
We had something happen where, there's some sort of a massive tragedy, and the vehicle involved was this, so it must be that. We must take out the brakes were of, ABS brand or, Stop Tech.
Right.
The tires are Bridgestone. The coat they were wearing was, North Face. I mean,
Yeah. Well, and I look at it as removing liabilities for gun manufacturers, to me, looks like the most extreme example of gun control that I can think of. Because how many lawsuits can gun manufacturers withstand before they just bankrupt?
They're not one.
Exactly. I mean, you're telling me that one by one, lawsuit after lawsuit, they can literally just make each one of these gun manufacturers dissolve.
Look what happened to Remington in Connecticut, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking one of the big three.
Right.
Is taken out by a lawsuit by somebody who killed somebody to steal firearms to go to a gun-free zone and commit each felony on his way along with homicide.
Right.
And now a weapons manufacturer had their liability removed in that state.
Yep.
And it killed, cause of bankruptcy.
Yep. Absolutely
that's one
insane.
of the big three.
Yeah.
Little guys?
Right.
Come on.
During Biden's executive orders, he mentioned that no amendment is absolute.
Mm-hmm.
In your mind, is that like a forecasting on what they plan to do?
I think the best thing that Trump did for us was to get the Republicans and Democrats to take off their mask and show us all who they really are, And so instead of all the games about we're not here to do this, we're not here to do that, they've taken off their mask, and that's the agenda. But if you outlaw things that are commonly purchased, isn't that a violation of the Fourth?
Right.
If you say that certain things can't be said because it's hate speech, whether you like it or not, isn't that a violation of the First?
Right.
This whole thing was set up that if you violated somebody's rights, that there was consequences.
Right.
Not your right to be offended, not your right to, anything else, but actual silencing you from speaking.
Right.
And so in the corporate world, this progressive agenda of inclusion and political correctness and all this stuff so that nobody has their feelings hurt. It's just degrading and disintegrating people. It's like, the whole thing about, voter ID laws are racist. Are you saying that the people of this group that you
can't get an ID?
They're not smart enough to get an ID?
They don't know how to get to the DMV and fill out the paperwork?
Or like open up a bank account or get on a plane or,
Well, in every poll in that particular scenario, every single poll I've seen shows that, the African-American community, who they are saying is going to be suppressed by this, over 70% of them are for voter ID.
Why don't you hear from them?
Hey, speaking of this, congratulations on getting the MLB All-Star Game moved to Colorado. I don't know how you guys pulled it off.
I don't know.
But y'all were able to get
laws. Our laws are more strict than where they moved them from.
More strict, and not to mention there's a pretty significant demographic in Colorado than in Georgia.
Yeah.
Primarily Caucasian.
Yeah.
It's just insane, these woke companies coming out and trying to make a statement and then completely putting their foot in their mouth.
United Airlines comes out and says that they're going to start picking pilots based on gender and race. So we're going to have people that are operating a piece of equipment in the millions of dollar territory with the lives of 200 and some people strapped into a tin can with wings on it. And we're going to go ahead and, we feel that this person is very qualified, but unfortunately, due to our restrictions, we have going to pick somebody else.
Yeah.
Thank you for participating.
Yeah. What they said was 50% of our new pilots trained will be either a woman or somebody of ethnic background. And my thought is, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I want the best pilot. Okay, I want whoever can get me from point A to point B without crashing the plane. And I don't care if it's a woman. I don't care what color they are.
Do it.
You don't need to make a statement about it.
Yeah. Just get it done.
Just give me whoever's best.
Yeah.
I've not boarded a single plane and knocked on the door and opened it up and been like, hey, I'm just making sure there's two white guys in here flying this thing.
Yeah.
That's not a thing.
No.
Like this is absolute ludicrousy.
It's part of the insanity. I mean, it goes back to the too much information, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people are just dumb.
Yeah.
And they're just freaking dumb.
Yeah.
Everybody's science this and science that. You want equality, fine.
Yeah.
Let's compete on equal ground. I don't understand this. We have first generation immigrants that come here from all levels of poverty, malnourishment, destruction, wars, genocide, everything. Mm-hmm. They come here to this country, the only place you can do that, and they succeed.
Right.
I have friends that have come here. One guy I knew, he swam across a port in Laos with his brother on his back holding onto a basketball.
Yeah.
Ended up in Colorado, down in Colorado Springs from a Christian mission. Last time I talked to him, he's got a nice house. He's got a beautiful wife, got his boat that he wanted, driving a Range Rover.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I first started working with him, he was going to school at night to take English classes so he could, communicate with us.
Yeah.
I mean, he came here. He swam across there with a pair of shorts on with his brother on his back.
Right.
I mean, you want to talk about coming here with nothing?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, and he's fine.
Successful.
He's doing great.
Very successful.
And that doesn't happen anywhere else.
No.
It happens here all the time. We take 1 million immigrants into the country every year.
Yeah.
And by and large, regardless of color, ethnicity, religion, anything, most of them are successful.
Right.
I mean, you can't.
Yeah.
I just don't get it.
It's frustrating. But,
yeah.
And especially when you see the just idiocracy in these companies coming out, making statements and then not reflecting those statements in their actions.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, it's just advertising.
Yeah. Well, what I like to say is we have a bloodthirsty media right now who's craving for ratings, and we have companies that are trying to figure out how can I stand out in this cesspool of information that everybody's got.
Well, social media is killing them.
Let's do something that is outlandish, something so crazy that the news organizations pick it up and give us free publicity for an entire month. Regardless of what the story is, my name's going to be in the headlines.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's really what it's all boils down to.
It's all marketing.
But anyway, well, we got to wind down here. I think we're running out of time. But I did want to say thank you for coming in, and I just want to let you know keep going.
I appreciate it. I like coming.
What
down
you
and hanging out
guys
with
do
you
at Phoenix Weaponry is truly awesome. I think you've got some of the most beautiful rifles that I've ever seen.
You say that to everybody who comes into your podcast.
You're the first. You're the first, though.
You're just buttering us all up.
Well, and also, if you guys aren't familiar with Phoenix Weaponry, go check out their website. They do have suppressors as well.
Yep.
They got some Delta monocore suppressors. Go click on the tab there. You'll be able to check those out.
Yeah, we suppress all the way up to 50.
Yeah. And what's that website?
www.phoenixweaponry.com.
Was that 4 W's?
I think so.
Okay, that's the new World Wide Web. That's the.
I'm so old that you used to have to put that in. Now I think it just goes directly if you just type it in.
Yeah.
I don't even know if you have to put .com in anymore.
No, I'm not. Maybe. I think you do. I think you still got to put the .com.
All right. Yeah.
You know what? Nobody put the .com in, and nobody put in the www.
Let us know how it goes.
See what happens.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks. We're gonna head out. We'll see you all on the next show.